Have you ever been curious about the mysteries hidden beneath the stone floors of ancient cathedrals? What happens to royalty when time, not enemies, becomes the ultimate victor? This is the captivating, eerie, and unforgettable tale of Queen Elizabeth I's, not in life, but after death. Elizabeth Tudor, known worldwide as Queen Elizabeth I, was more than just a monarch. She embodied an entire era. Her name alone sparked loyalty, fear, respect, and at times, animosity. She was Gloriana, the Virgin Queen, the last Tudor ruler. For 44 years, she governed England through uprisings, wars, religious turmoil, and the deadliest challenges Europe could throw at her. Elizabeth confronted the formidable Philip II of Spain, crushed the dreadful might of the Spanish Armada, and guided England away from civil disorder into a flourishing age marked by exploration, artistic achievement, and empire building. Yet even Gloriana, with all her authority and intelligence, could not outrun her deepest dread: the destiny of her physical remains after passing. Beneath the painted visage and intricate dresses was a woman deeply troubled by the reality of death. Throughout her entire reign, Elizabeth was encircled by death, assassins, betrayal, familial plots, and the ever-present danger of invasion from abroad. She witnessed how swiftly queens could lose power, and how even family members might transform into lethal foes. Her own cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots, once aimed for her crown and paid with her life. Elizabeth herself had signed the sentence that ended Mary's existence, and though she displayed stoicism in public, that decision weighed heavily on her. Haunting her until the very end, nothing terrified Queen Elizabeth I more than the brutal procedure that awaited her body. In the 16th century, embalming was far from gentle or respectful. It was severe, intrusive, and ruthless. The human body was regarded as a machine to be disassembled. Once death occurred, the body was placed upon a cold stone slab, clinical and devoid of compassion. Sharp, long knives were used to cut open the flesh. Then the organs, including the heart, liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines, were manually extracted. To slow down the inevitable decomposition, the empty cavity was packed with intensely fragrant herbs and spices, such as cloves, cinnamon, myrrh, and other expensive substances. These additions were not symbolic gestures, but intended to combat the dreadful odor that would soon arise. In her final moments, Queen Elizabeth I pleaded that her body be exempted from such treatment. She implored her doctors and attendants not to dissect her, asking that she be presented to God in complete form. She wished to meet her Creator as she had lived, unaltered, untouched, and undefeated. However, death offers no room for negotiation. On the 24th of March, 1603, Queen Elizabeth I passed away, and with her demise, all protections granted by her royal status ceased. The physicians and surgeons, adhering to their responsibilities and practical needs, proceeded with the task. Her body was transported to the embalming chamber where her chest was cut open, and her internal organs, including the heart that had sustained the hopes of an empire, were removed along with her stomach, liver, and other vital parts. The intestines were removed and replaced with fragrant spices packed firmly in their place. These extreme measures were not intended to honor her, but to avert a disaster: the swelling and bursting of her corpse during the state funeral. Without such intervention, the pressure of gases building up inside her decomposing body could have transformed her coffin into a dangerous explosive. The threat was genuine, since other royal funerals in history had experienced similar gruesome incidents: coffins splitting open, and the grisly sight of exposed remains spoiling what was meant to be a dignified farewell. The embalmer dared not let Queen Elizabeth II's final goodbye turn into such a horror. Once the embalming was finished, Queen Elizabeth II's body was wrapped in luxurious crimson velvet adorned with Tudor roses, symbols of a dynasty now fading away. She was then sealed inside a heavy lead-lined coffin crafted not only for grandeur, but to ensure containment. The coffin was closed and the ceremonies commenced, marking the beginning of the last Tudor monarch's solemn procession. The royal barge transported her down the Thames, through misty waters under somber, overcast skies. Thousands gathered silently along the riverbanks, mourning their queen. The atmosphere was solemn, poignant, and misleading. Those nearest to the barge whispered about a peculiar clinging scent, a sickly sweet smell drifting from the coffin faintly restrained by the lead casing. Even in death, Queen Elizabeth I's body reminded the world of its fragility as the gases of decay oozed through unseen cracks. The faint scent floated through the air along with her presence. If the coffin had not held together, England would have faced a terrifying event. The metal casing might have ruptured under the strain. This would have led to a horrifying moment when the sudden blast scattered the remains of its most honored monarch before her people. Thankfully, the coffin endured just enough to prevent that tragedy. Queen Elizabeth I was laid to rest at Westminster Abbey. Beneath the imposing stones of that hallowed site, her tomb stood grand yet serene on the surface, promising everlasting peace. However, many years later, the quiet of her burial place was disturbed. In the late 19th century, under Queen Victoria's rule, a man named Dean Arthur Stanley received approval to inspect the sealed royal vaults beneath the abbey. Fascination gripped the minds of Victorians as history was being uncovered in a very literal way. With a lantern in hand, Stanley descended into the chilling darkness of England's royal dead. The air hung heavy with the aroma of centuries past, and the walls held a profound silence. When he entered the chamber where Queen Elizabeth I rested, he was met not by royal splendor, but by the ravages of time. The beautiful coffin had fallen apart. Its wooden layers had crumbled into dust. The once luxurious velvet had faded and become fragile. Even the lead casing intended to endure forever was warped and distorted from internal decay. Yet the letters E.R. Elizabeth Regina were still faintly visible, a spectral reminder of the woman once known as Gloriana. Yet this was not the full tale. Above Queen Elizabeth I's shattered coffin rested the bones of her half-sister Mary IV. During their lifetimes, their bitter conflict had set England ablaze in strife and bloodshed. In death, they lay side by side within the same cramped vault, adversaries in life, but neighbors for eternity. The air there was thick with centuries of trapped decay. Stanley stood alone amidst two queens, both long departed but forever linked by a story that refused to fade. What he witnessed confirmed a somber reality. Even the mightiest rulers cannot escape the relentless, patient gnawing of time. Queen Elizabeth I's body had been embalmed with great urgency. It had not decayed peacefully. Inside the coffin, gases continued their dreadful work, causing it to swell unnaturally. The velvet covering was stained and the wood had disappeared, yet among this decay fragments of her essence remained. The Tudor rose, worn embroidery, and the weight of legend lingered silently amid dust. Above ground, the world continued unaware. Tourists wandered across the gleaming marble of Westminster Abbey, admiring its beauty, music, and grace, unaware of the stark reality beneath their feet. Hidden beneath the stones lay a story not of triumph, but of rot. A fragile coffin swollen with decay, still holding the remains of a queen who once ruled seas. Queen Elizabeth I's tomb is far more than a mere monument. It is a message etched not in stone, but in the passage of time. A reminder that even the greatest sovereigns must yield to the earth, that velvet fades and lead surrenders to the years. Every mortal body, regardless of its noble status, eventually yields to the inevitable power of nature's final embrace. Yet the legacy of Queen Elizabeth I lives on, preserved through written works, artistic creations, and the narrative of a remarkable age she helped shape. Although her physical form, once bedecked in splendid gold, now rests silently in a hidden chamber, its former glory swallowed by the passage of countless centuries. Elizabeth I, known as the Virgin Queen who led armies and outsmarted rival monarchs, lies now fragmented and fragile. Time governs all and remains the ultimate sovereign. No one, not even a legendary queen, can escape the reach of its dominion.